Great. Well, first of all, my name is Tracy Craig, moderating the meeting. We're happy that you're here. With me tonight is Dylan Rowe, who's the Chief of Alameda County Environmental Health, Department of Land and Water. Dylan, raise your hand. He can see you. We also have our technical team, and John Permani's up in the left-hand corner. He's taking notes and recording this. So we are recording this video. And John, next slide. We have a presentation, Will, and we're happy to go through it, or we're happy just to answer questions for you. Our presentation is about 10 minutes long. Would you like us to go through it?
Yeah, please do.
Great. Okay. Purpose of the meeting tonight is to provide an overview of the redevelopment project at 1904 Adeline Street, and specifically to discuss the environmental conditions and the corrective actions or cleanup plans, remedial actions, mitigation measures to address those to support future redevelopment of the site. Next slide, John. Simple agenda, introduction, site background, corrective actions that are proposed, measures that will be taken to protect the community during the actual remediation work. And then we'll talk about our schedule and any questions. And Will, I'd like to say, feel free to answer questions. It's all about you tonight. So feel free to ask questions throughout this. We'd love to have an interactive meeting with you. Next slide.
That's great. I feel very spoiled right now.
Good. Site location. I think, do you live in the area?
Yes, we do.
Okay, so you're probably familiar with the site location. Next slide.
Yes, very, very much so.
Okay, great. And once again, why are we here? Community Housing Development Corporation and Friendship Community Development Corporation are proposing to redevelop the site as senior housing. The site is entitled by the City of Oakland, so that's already done. We're here tonight specifically to talk about contamination that is at the property, not from the developer. The developer will be addressing it, though, to support redevelopment. And Alameda County Department of Environmental Health is the county agency that provides oversight of cleanup of environmental issues throughout the county, including at redevelopment properties. Next slide, please. And just introduction to our stakeholders. Obviously, we have a general contractor, the developer we just talked about, their environmental consultant, and then the County of Alameda. Additionally, the Bay Area Air Quality Management District gets involved with air issues. City of Oakland obviously gets involved for permitting and entitling the project. And this is once again Alameda County's public meeting. And then Dylan, I'm going to toss this off to you, please.
Okay. So Will, since you are our sole audience, I'm just going to talk straight to you. So jump in if you jump in the middle, if you want. I'm going to keep it a little bit high level to talk about what we're doing there. And if you have questions and you want to go further into it, I will. We can go into it. So I am the Chief of the Land and Water Division, and we have a program that oversees the cleanup and investigation of contamination at properties from historical land use operations. And then we also work with developers and people who are cleaning up the site if there's any mitigation measures that need to be installed at the site to protect people from mostly things like vapor intrusion into indoor air. So that's kind of our purpose. There are a lot of other agencies involved in sites that we deal with. And we do not have regulatory authority over, but we do coordinate with them. For instance, planning. Yep.
I'm sorry, I just wanted to jump in really quick. You mentioned, yep. Some equipment. What's some of the standard equipment you guys would kind of use for that kind of excavation of a site that big?
So we will talk about that just in a couple of slides. Okay, so we'll get right to that. That is a good question. Okay. So why don't we just go along? So again, there will be all kinds of equipment at the site because the site is being redeveloped with a housing. There's currently the existing church will be demolished and then it'll be redeveloped. So there's all kinds of construction equipment that you will see at the site. And we're going to talk when we get a few slides in. We'll talk to you about the kinds of equipment. Those are great questions for remediation. So why don't you roll to the next slide? Just a really brief overview. Community development entered into a voluntary agreement with us, with Environmental Health and Friendship Housing, to clean up the site to facilitate the redevelopment with housing. There have been a lot of investigations. I don't know if you've seen any activity out there with some drill rigs that have been collecting soil and soil vapor and groundwater. Have you seen any activity out there?
No, not to my knowledge.
Okay, so there's been some equipment out there that basically just, you know, advances a drill down into the soil so they can collect soil and groundwater samples. And there have been some chemicals that we have detected that are above human health risk-based screening levels. And so we're going to work on cleaning those up and putting mitigation measures at the site to make sure that the residents of the new building are not impacted, and that if there is any releases of contamination on the property that extends off-site, that is also cleaned up so it doesn't impact any adjacent neighbors. So the kinds of places you find contamination are in soil. You find them in groundwater, and you find them in something called soil gas, which is really kind of vapor that comes out of soil and can travel up into buildings. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're currently overseeing some investigations, some more investigations this month. So you may see a drill rig out there, people collecting samples to kind of further define the extent of impacts that we have seen at the site so far. Okay, so next slide. All right, so, and this is the kind of drill rig that you might have seen or you will see. So if you see something like this in the next week or so, they're out there collecting additional data. But what we have found in soil is we found lead and diesel and motor oil. We found those in certain areas at the site. And so again, they're out there collecting additional information to make sure that they kind of define the extent of that so that we can inform what it looks like when we're going to clean it up. Next slide. Groundwater has been, so there are groundwater samples that have been collected at the site have both diesel and motor oil in them. Groundwater is pretty deep. It's about 20 feet below ground, and it isn't used for drinking water. But rather, you know, East Bay Mud provides drinking water in your neighborhood. And so there isn't a concern about ingestion of drinking water. There are concerns in the state of California about cleaning up groundwater releases, but there isn't a direct concern about possible ingestion at this site. Additional investigations are being conducted again to determine if the motor oil and the diesel that are found in the soil at the site are actually the source of the impacts that we're seeing in groundwater. Okay, next slide. So soil gas. You might see some, since you know about this site now, you might see some weird cans like this. And those are, that's sampling equipment that's used to extract, basically collect soil vapor from borings that are put in the ground. And we have found some volatile chemicals in there that are considered chemicals of concern. And so again, the next week or so, we're doing some additional testing to understand the concentrations that we're seeing out there and the extent of those impacts. So now the next slide is kind of where you were going, which is, what are we going to see out there? What's going to happen? So there is a document on the web, and there's a link at the end of this presentation that shows you how to see this document if you want. It's a pretty fat document, it's pretty technical, but it discusses all the data that's been collected and proposed corrective actions at the site. And so right now, those corrective actions will be implemented during site redevelopment. And they will include excavation of some of this shallow soil where we see lead, maybe, depending on the results, there may be some excavation of diesel and motor oil, depending on the concentrations. So what does that look like? Excavation That's pretty shallow. So Kyle, are you on the call? You want to talk about equipment?
Yeah, Dylan, I'm on the call. What we'd likely use, because the equipment's going to be used for construction as well as
Can you just tell Will what you do, who you are?
Oh, yeah. Hi, Will. I'm Kyle Flory. I'm the environmental consultant for CHDC, the developer who's teamed up with Friendship Community to redevelop the site into affordable senior housing. So I'm a principal geologist, been doing this for a long time. And this type of work would generally use like a track mounted excavator with about, just a pretty small bucket, nothing too big. And then we would, run little bobcats around for creating soil stockpiles, et cetera.
Does that answer that question, Will?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, ultimately, I'm not a contractor and knows what kind of, exact equipment, but he gave me a great generalization.
Yeah. And I don't know, Kyle, do we have an estimate just based on what we're thinking about now about how many cubic yards would be moved?
Right. I mean, right now it's very small. It's about 85 cubic yards, less than 100.
Yeah.
So not much at all. And depending on what we see in the additional excavation or investigation, that'll determine what the final soil volume will be.
Yeah. So not a really, really significant excavation. It's not going to be really, really deep across the site. And so we'll talk a little bit in another slide about what we'll do during excavation to make sure that the community isn't impacted by dust. Okay. And once the excavation is completed, then it gets backfilled, and it gets backfilled with clean dirt that gets brought in from the site. And then basically the site is ready for the redevelopment and the construction of the foundations and the utilities and the landscaping. So that is for sure going to happen, the soil excavation. And then depending on the results of these investigations that are being conducted shortly, there may be something for groundwater, and there may be something to treat soil vapor. And though that includes, so groundwater would include maybe some additional excavation, right? If they can get, if the motor oil and diesel, and some injection or placement basically of a chemical that promotes the degradation or the breakdown of the residual stuff that's left in groundwater, and that occurs over time. So Kyle, I think are you talking, the thought is an injection of work or something?
Right. Yeah. Something like that. Some oxygen releasing compound that will promote biological growth that degrades all these compounds right in place.
Yep. So non-toxic, basically oxygen generating and helps break down the remaining contamination at the site. And then there may be, we don't know about this, but it's being considered depending on the results. There's something called soil vapor extraction, where you put in, you basically put a bunch of straws in the ground and you suck the soil gas out. That's kind of the most simplified way I can say it. They're wells, and they draw a vacuum and they pull soil vapor out of the ground. That we don't know. That we're going to know a little bit more. And if that happens, what that looks like is there is some equipment. And I think, Kyle, are we talking about a mobile system maybe, or
probably like a skid mounted unit, small blower, a couple of granular activated carbon vessels, okay, so you can clean the extracted air up before it discharges the atmosphere. Yep. Do that under permit with Bay Area Air Quality Management District.
Yep. So what that would look like, Will, is there'd be some wells in the ground that you wouldn't see, and they would go into some equipment that would be fenced off, and it gets treated before the air is discharged to the atmosphere so that it's clean. So those are things that we're going to find out more about in the next in the next month. So next, any questions on that? Will?
No, that was a great explanation. Thank you.
Okay, next slide. So then underneath the new building, there are going to be some, it's still being understood, but it's likely that there will be some engineering systems that are built into new buildings. They're quite common in new buildings that are built these days. And they include a plastic barrier and some vent piping beneath the foundation. And basically kind of plugs in some utility trenches. So their plugs are, a plug in a jug. It keeps, the intent of this is if there is residual vapor that we haven't gotten, that it keeps it from going into the building, and it keeps it from traveling along utility trenches that usually are backfilled with gravel. So they provide this nice pathway for vapors to move along. So it keeps it from moving off-site onto anybody else's property. And then kind of over time, those systems, they stay there. And basically what they do is if there's any vapors left or contamination underneath the building, it will passively, the system will vent it to the air over time and continue kind of this residual remediation of the site. So next slide. All right, so what we want you to know is that we take this seriously. We take it seriously for two reasons. We want to make sure that properties that have had historical contamination on them get cleaned up before somebody puts a new building on top of them, because that's important. We want to clean up historical contamination. And we also want to make sure that during the excavation of remedial of impacted soil or any kind of treatment with groundwater or soil vapor, that the community is protected. We don't want dust flying around and getting on your properties. We don't want dust and dirt tracked out in the street. We want to make sure that the air is not impacted, both from dust or from odors or anything else. And so there are some strict protocols that get followed during that, including, how waste is managed. If something gets dug up out of the ground, does it get put straight into a truck and tarped, or does it get put in a stockpile and tarped before it goes to a landfill? Watering excavation sometimes to control dust. So there are a lot of different things that can happen and that will be implemented. And then specified truck routes of where the trucks will go when they take the soil out of there. Next measure, or next, not measure, next slide. So there will be, the site will be fenced. There will be signs on the site, so with contact information. So if you are sitting at home someday and you are mad or something's going on, you call that number, it will get responded to. We want to know, and we want to make sure that everybody is being heard and taken care of, and so that we can relay that information and make sure that information gets relayed to the contractor, to us, and to everybody else to do anything that we need to do to correct anything that's not quite following protocol. And then there will be on this link that we're going to provide you, you can always go on there and check weekly to see an update. It'll just be a couple of pages in a document that'll say what was done and what's happening next week. Next slide. So here's our schedule. Reason we're having this meeting is because we are in a public comment period. So when you prepare corrective actions and you start thinking about what you're going to do, you go out to the community that's nearby and you let them know that there's this document, let them know what's going on, and give them an opportunity to comment on the document or come to our community meeting to understand what we're doing and ask any kind of questions. So that public comment period ends on January 22nd. So if you are interested in looking at that document, we'll give you the link in the next slide. And then we have this meeting today. And our goal and the goal is that the site structures will start to be demolished sometime in the spring of 2022. So next year, right? It's not immediately this year, and that the remedial activities will occur in conjunction with that. Actually, the remedial activities may occur before that if it's soil vapor extraction, huh? Kyle?
Yeah, absolutely. We would try to, I mean, if we wind up doing anything for groundwater or soil vapor, we would want to get in front of that and get that going as quickly as practicable.
Yeah, so that will keep everybody posted on GeoTracker, but remedial activities, depending on what we find in the next month or so, could occur this year. And then
I'll just add that this schedule is based on our current understanding of the site.
Yeah, yep. So got it. Yes, got it. So construction, including that plastic barrier and the piping will happen during the spring also. And then our communications with you and the community will be ongoing. We're here. We want to hear from you if you have concerns. So next slide. So here is the link to this thing called GeoTracker. It's a database that the State Water Resources Control Board hosts, and we have a link here that'll take you right in. If you type in the name Friendship Senior Housing, it'll take you to the database for this case, and it'll give you a list of all documents, and you can read them if you want to understand more about the technical aspects. And if you have any comments or going forward, you can contact Tracy. There's her information. Tamami, you want to raise your hand?
Yeah, hi. I'm the case manager for this case.
So will you show your face?
Oh, I guess my video is off.
There you are.
Hi.
Tamami. So Will, that's Tamami. She's a smart young woman. And if you have any questions, she works for me, and you can definitely reach out to her also. So
I think that concludes our presentation. So we'd love to hear if you have questions, and tell us about yourself too, Will.
Yeah, so the situation is, 1908 and 1912 Adeline is our property adjacent to 1904.
Okay.
So we would be probably the most impacted site, just because we border you guys on that fault line to the left of the property.
Yep.
And
So,
Will, a clarifying question, is that a residential property?
It is a multi-unit residential property.
Multi-unit. Okay, thank you.
So we have 4 units on there, and then one of the units is dedicated to the family office, which my dad stays at, and my brother. So for us, it's great news, but it's also we're just trying to get a better understanding, just because it's so close to home.
Yeah.
And we want to be obviously understand the process as it happens, and then also understand some of the things that could be negatively impacted to kind of our quality of life there as the construction happens, and then also where we should be understanding what kind of soil we're living beneath as well.
So one thing I can tell you is the lead impacts in West Oakland in soil are more common than I would like to know about. And that's based on a lot of stuff. Sometimes it's from aerial deposition. Sometimes it's like if you're near a freeway or something where, yeah. And so, and it also, you also find lead in soil on properties that had previous development, like this site had a previous, this site did have residential on it, didn't it, historically, Kyle?
Yes.
Historically it was a mortuary.
Yeah,
Well,
but
Before that, it was residential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of things at this site that it had residential houses, and then they were knocked down. And they were knocked down before they do things, before there were environmental regulations about removing building materials that have lead and different chemicals in them, which is what we do now. So when the church gets knocked down, it won't have there will be abatement. It's called abatement, that makes sure that any lead or asbestos or PCBs, things that are in building materials that you don't want to get into the ground, that those are removed before the building gets knocked down. But historically, a long time ago, we didn't do that. So you often see lead in soil where buildings have been knocked down. And I suspect that's where the lead came from at this site, on this property. And so, I mean, that just makes sense that that's where it came from. And then,
Well, Dylan, I can add that where we do see the lead impacts, it's in fill material right at the ground surface. So it's not native. It's definitely related to what appears to be prior, demolition and then mixing with soil and then capping with asphalt.
Yep.
Yep. So it should be limited just to this property, and it's not widespread.
Right. So the contamination for the lead on this site is related to its historic use. The motor oil and so there is some motor oil in soil, and it's not clear exactly why, and diesel in soil. And there is some in groundwater. And then there's some other volatile chemicals in soil gas. And it's not clear what the source of those are. One of our questions and why everybody's been working on this is because of its historic use as a mortuary. But we're not seeing an indication of a large release from historic land use. One of the things that is also true about Oakland is that we see some chemicals of concern in the ground that are coming from a lot of different places from a long time ago. And nobody knows exactly where they come from. So, the soil gas information is important to understand. That's the thing that I think is most important to understand moving forward. And so some of the data that Kyle is collecting is going to tell us more about whether that soil gas, the impacts in soil gas, are coming from something on site, or whether they appear to have just, be coming off site. And if it's coming from on site, they'll do something to remediate them. And that will be good, because you want to remove stuff that's in the ground. If it's coming from off site, that's a different discussion. And so I would say to you, I will not lie to you. There is contamination in West Oakland, and it is underneath people's buildings. I don't know that it's underneath your building. It's one thing that I want to make sure. Do we have a site map that actually shows where Will lives relative to the site soil vapor? I don't think we do. Maybe if we go back to the site map.
Well, I was looking at some of the docs online, and if you were to do a side-by-side between where you drilled, because you could see the site there, and I saw a document that had orange and blue circles kind of showing where the bores went down and drilled 6 feet into the ground. And then we're right there behind it, right there. So Adeline Street up, and then we're the 2 units there with the big lot to the right.
Got it.
So
you're like right on the top, like on the page top of this photo right here?
north of the site. Yeah, that'd be correct.
John, can you point it out with your cursor?
Right there. And Kyle, I think the vapor impacts are down in the parking lot more, aren't they?
Yeah, that's correct. Right.
Right. But I don't think we've collected any vapor beneath the building yet because we haven't, right?
That's right. Well, we haven't because of access. We're going to be collecting some next to the building, but there is a sample in the parking lot on the east side of the building, sort of on the northeast side of this site, and it didn't have any soil vapor impacts.
Yeah. So Right now, what I would say, Will, is I would say check back in with us if you want to talk to us after we get the investigation data, so we understand a little bit more. But right now, there's not anything that is indicating, but we're not done looking at it, that's indicating that there is a risk from soil vapor, at least from the data that we have on this site, to your property. That we do not, that's not something that's standing out to us at the moment. But we are collecting additional data to understand that, and if there was a release, to make sure that it is remediated, and so that it won't impact your property. But I would like to make sure is that we have Will's information. Tracy, you have it.
I was gonna get that. I have
Perfect.
his phone number and his name, but
Yeah, and then that way, I would like actually to reach out to Will when we get the information and kind of have a discussion with him about what that means relative to his property. Does that seem good?
Yeah,
Will?
that would be great. I'm happy to do that.
And Will, what is your last name?
So you can go ahead and just my best contact source is it has my name in it. It's going to be my email, which is Aguilar, AGUILAR .William@outlook.com.
William at Outlook. Got it.
And then the best
I
phone
was also
number.
going to say that just insofar as when the work starts and impacts and such, the best defense is to know that the work is coming, right? So we'll make sure that we have a plan to communicate with you during remediation and construction. I think that
Yeah, that would be great. We're definitely want to basically have our tenants as informed as we are.
Great.
Just because they're just going to be kind of spectators to the event. But what I wanted to say is that for us, I know you guys have. I'm sure there's designated timelines within the spring of 2022 that you guys are going to get a little bit more calendar based, right? Like exact dates when things will be happening.
Yep.
Okay, great. Yeah. So I mean, for us, it's just going to be about just for doing our own due diligence and chiming in and seeing, you guys have a project calendar that we can just tap into and then kind of, look from there.
Sure. I think that sounds absolutely reasonable.
Yep.
Great.
So absolutely. And we appreciate you actually being on the phone call and being interested. That's what we want. We want to let people know what's going on and coordinate and keep you informed.
Well, I'm sorry, I you kind of broke up. Can you repeat that?
I'm just saying that I appreciate that you got on the call tonight, because our intent, of having these is, to talk to the community about what's going on and address their concerns and keep them informed. So we appreciate you being on the call. We appreciate your contact information, and you have the link to the site, and that's where data will be, and we'll reach out to you. Tracy will reach out to you and keep you posted on what's going on.
Okay, no, thank you so much. Yeah, this is, it's very important. It's going to be something historically for that area. So I think it's important to be on board with what's going on from not only a community standpoint, from just kind of this has been in our family's property. This property has been in our family's name for a long time. So we're not looking on going anywhere. So for us to understand what's going to be moving forward with the area, it's good news.
Good.
Okay. And Will, you're the preferred contact, and you'll let your father, who lives on site, know what's going on too, right?
Oh yeah. I have my sister and myself have power of attorney over the area, so we would be the face of information to talk to for that.
And then let us know if we need to do anything for your tenants to let them know as well. If there's anything.
I don't think there's anything special. I think whatever you would be doing because I know there's other residents that are, that surround the three corners of the backside. So whatever you guys do that's, in line from a legality standpoint, I think that would be the best, just to let them know that certain things are going to be happening. But I guess for us, it's more about having a little bit of a deeper conversation, since we're going to be the ones educating ourselves during the process.
This is Lorena Aguilar. I do have a question. So to that point, obviously maybe it's too early, but we appreciate the open line of communication, all the information on the site. We received the notification by mail, so that triggered us to get more involved. but, you know, as more communications, if there's a communication line that you mentioned to other residents, and that can go directly to the tenants so that they're aware. Obviously, we want to be aligned to what those communications are and timely. You know, one of our concerns is, you know, if the tenants will be significantly impacted, we can limit that impact. That we could be as transparent upfront with them as possible, as early as possible, without causing too much of a fire alarm. But if there's a need for us to, you know, if we're supposed, you know, if we're going to communicate the information, and we should, it would be great to know that that's something that you need from the tenants that are actually on the property as well.
Yep.
Because you know, many of them are working from home remotely.
Yep.
I know that it's on business hours. So as we get closer to that, it would be good to get any support or any recommendations from you based on what you've done in the past, so that we can support that effort as well.
So one thing, and I totally appreciate that, and we will keep the community updated on when this starts. One thing I want to say, though, is that the remedial action at this site will be relatively short. The timing of that. So, you know, that there are potential impacts that we talked about, dust, and making sure that, you know, that there is an exposure to to contaminated media. The thing that will impact the community longer is the construction, right? Mm-hmm. And that, because construction, I don't know, is this what are we talking, a year and a half to construct? What are you guys thinking?
15 months.
15 months.
Yeah.
So that unfortunately I can't do anything about, because it's not under our jurisdiction, but you know, and then it's the city of Oakland. But I think that this developer is conscious about this community. They're trying to build this for this community, and I would expect, I would hope that Friendship Housing and all of the people involved will be conscious with their contractors and communicate to you guys throughout the construction of this, because that's the longer term like impact for people with noise and kind of construction dust. So just want to kind of make sure that, you know, we're going to be looking at this at a very short term point in time when we're doing some work that we're overseeing the environmental, and then that construction will be longer. So I would just it's a good heads up to Friendship and everybody to, you know, continue to do what you're doing, which is try to inform people and try and, you know, have a tidy and as little impact as possible from construction sites. But construction sites are impactful. They're noisy.
Thanks, Marjorie. So I mean, is there a contact from the Friendship or from the community, or you know, the other entity that's actually purchasing the property, so that we have the direct contacts to make sure that communication happens? I mean, I know this is way beyond what you guys are going to be focused on. I could see that this is going to be short term, and then when is the handoff happening as far as where the communication, you know, is it all going to be via mail? Is it via email? Is there a site that's being constructed for that purpose? Or
Hi, Maria. This is Pastor AG, and we will make sure that the community, each step of the way, will be informed on each part of the project. We're your next door neighbor, and so and you and I have had many conversations, and so we will keep you informed, and we're part of the whole process. We are co-developers with CHDC, and so we will keep.
That's great. We would like to get a little better understanding of who CHDC is. I've been looking on the website to better understand who they are and who the contractors are. So whatever you could share would be, I haven't received anything to date, so it would be helpful to bring up us to speed on anything that you could share up to this point. You have William's email address, so what I appreciate is, a little bit more information about that. We'll first go through what is on the site, which has been great, but this is the first time I've even seen, you can go, the document that provided a better visibility of all the work that's been done on, this development. To be honest, this is really, the flyer that we received was really the driver of us knowing that this is what's going to be on the property, which is absolutely great. It looks awesome, but we just want to make sure that, we understand what that communication line is going to be, whether it's an email that, is timely so that the tenants are receiving information and that we understand what is happening on site. So would much appreciate your help with that to better understand how you plan to do that.
Yeah, CHDC is on this line, and so Tim or Joanna, if you guys want to speak to that.
So, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Tim Moreau. I'm the project manager with CHGC. So yes, I was sending my contact info so we could definitely get in contact and discuss the project in more detail. But as Pastor Adrian said, CHGC and Friendship Christian Community Development, we are partnered on this site. Like you said in one of the slides, construction will not be starting until spring of next year. And to that effect, also, we don't have a general contractor selected as yet. So that part, nothing started anytime soon. But as we do get close, as we do get closer to the construction start date next year, size will go up, and we will be in more contact with the community about when work will start, what's to be expected. The city of Oakland themselves, they would have certain rules we have to follow about when work, at what time of day work can start, and what time it has to be completed by. So
No, that's great, Tim. I think
I'll take it as an action
alignment's
item.
going to be good.
I'm sorry, go ahead, please, Will.
Oh no, I was just saying that's spot on. I just think it's it's you guys have done a lot of work to get this far, and I think just for you guys are at the stage of getting the community involved, and for those that want to be proactive, they would be on a call or this kind of webinar. But in the meantime, we're hungry for the information, and we're here to just to take in as much information as you guys get as you guys develop the site from inception to when it's fully functioning.
And I will take it as an action item to make sure that you get everybody's contact information. Will, and I think it's Lorena, am I correct? Did I get that right?
Yes,
Great,
Tracy,
great.
that's
I'll make
correct.
sure that
Thank
we
you so
send
much.
everybody's contact information and that you make the right connection with the developers as well. Okay?
yeah, I just sent my
thank
name and email to everybody. So
Oh, well, great. Okay, any other questions?
None from us. Thank you.
Well, we would just like to say how appreciative we are of you joining us. And Dylan, anything else you'd like to say?
No, it's been a good meeting, and again, reach out to any of us, and if you need to talk to me, you can get my information through to Mommy, and let's just keep the communication open, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Have a nice evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right, good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
I'm going to quit recording.
Okay.